I was angry at Sebastian for dying. You feel like saying, God, 32 years later, and I can still get very, very upset about it. I was angry that that while he was born and lived with me and slept and then died, they were actively campaigning in New Zealand to try and stop this happening because they had a very high cot death rate there. They had the lady, the Anne Diamond, if you like, of New Zealand, a television presenter called Judy Bailey, went on telly every night and said, if you're just about to put your baby down to sleep, put him on his or her back, not the tummy, and this will help. And their cot death rate plummeted. And I went out to New Zealand and met her, and it was anger that drove me to come back and demand that we have the same advert here, the same campaign. And of course, I got all this complete nonsense from the Department of Health saying, oh, young mothers do not watch television, I was told. In other words, while New Zealand mums were being told how to save their babies' lives, we actively denied British mums that advice during the time that Sebastian and others were dying.
And the other point, I suppose, to make is it's helpful to educate all generations, because when I had my babies, my mum would say, he's not settling, just stick him on his tummy, he'll be much happier. That's what we did with you. And we had to say, well, things have changed, and,
Yes.
But it's about educating everybody, because it's not just the mums that get their hands on the babies.
Very good evening to you. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Iran risks provoking an uncontrollable regional escalation, a warning from world leaders following last night's attack on Israel. G7 leaders, including Lord Cameron, have condemned Iran's attack and say they stand ready to take further measures. Israel says it will exact a price from Iran, but its war cabinet is split on the timing and the scale of the response. However, the White House says the US won't take part in any retaliatory strikes, and Iran has promised to launch a much stronger assault if Israel retaliates. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, has told members of the Security Council civilians are paying the highest price, and now is the time to de-escalate.
The Middle East is on the brink. The people of the region are confronting a real danger of a devastating, full-scale conflict. Now is the time to defuse and de-escalate. Now is the time for maximum restraint.
Well, Rishi Sunak earlier revealed RAF planes took part in a number of counter-drone strikes overnight. He says had Iran been successful, the fallout for regional stability would be hard to overstate. Israel has urged its allies to prescribe Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist group, and Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the government should act.
This highlights once again the extreme danger of the IRGC and the Iranian Guard. We have said that we think that it should be prescribed, and it is for the government to come forward with new plans to prescribe them and to deal with this issue of state actors that would behave in this appalling way that wreaks terror on a wider community.
A cabinet minister has insisted the government's Rwanda plan is on track, with flights due to take off within weeks. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins says the Home Office is, quote, ready to go, despite the troubled bill still making its way through Parliament. No airline's been named to transport the asylum seekers. Rwanda's state-owned carrier has turned down a request. The Prime Minister's repeatedly said the flights would take off by spring, although no date has been set. And more than 250 survivors of the Manchester Arena bombing are taking legal action against MI5. 22 people died in the explosion in May 2017, and hundreds more were injured. Lawyers representing injured survivors confirmed they've submitted a group claim to an independent judicial body. An inquiry found the bombing may have been prevented if MI5 had acted on intelligence received in the months before the attack. Its Director General, Ken McCallum, has apologised for MI5's inability to prevent the atrocity. You can get more on all of our stories by signing up to GB News Alerts. The QR code's on your screen, or you can go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. I've got newspapers, I've got comedians, I've got Ray Addison's tie, and I've got an Auto cue. Anyway, tonight I'm very happy to be joined by Kerry Marks, and I'm also joined by Lewis Schaefer. Starting early. How are you both?
How are you?
I met my hero yesterday in Southampton, and I was in Southampton, which was a surprising joy. So shout out to the people of Southampton.
That's great. Did you get recognised a lot in the street?
At this particular place, I got recognised by two people.
Okay, it was no OP home.
No.
Okay.
And it's Ivor Cummins, if you can find out who that guy is.
Name check out. How are you, Kerry?
I get recognised all the time, you know, it's exhausting. No, happy to be here. I tend to be here on Sundays. It's like you don't trust me with real news.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. We're just trying you out, warming you in. But you've got the tie now. You're progressing up the schedule.
I'm here on Sunday, too.
Wait a minute.
I was insulting you by default.
Sundays is the only day they let me host. What's going on here? Right, let's have a quick look at Monday's front pages. The Times. Israel vows revenge as the world calls for calm. Daily Mail, it's time for the world facing evil empire in Tehran. The Eye, Iran masks an uncontrollable wider war with Israel attacks. G7 nations warn. The Financial Times, Israel weighs options after Iran attack. There's a bit of a theme here. The Guardian, US warning as Israel weighs up response to Iran's attack. And the Daily Star will add a few more lifeboats on the new Titanic. Kerry, first up we have The Guardian.
Oh, yeah, let's start with the gentle, sweet stories, shall we? This is the attack on Israel by Iran of 300 missiles and drones, which could have been extremely tragic if it wasn't for the, British forces and American forces and, of course, the Iron Dome.
And the Jordanians and the Saudi Arabians.
Yes, that's right. Actually, I was going to add that who have having to show their hand now, which is getting quite interesting. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of posturing to see who can push what to force something to happen. And Biden is saying that America will not be brought into a counter-offensive, which seems like a very weak position, because I think that they're testing to see how strong America's reaction is going to be, as well as anything else. But there's several things about this which I'll mention, not that... Well, we'll just sort of skirt around it a little bit. There's things we keep hearing, which is Israel is falling for it, which I'm hearing a lot. Israel shouldn't respond because they shouldn't fall for it. I heard the same after the October 7th attack, is that Israel fell for it, as if it was a trick, as if it was so small that they could have just brushed it away. But this attack could have completely destroyed Israel. It's massive. If it hadn't been...
Ballistic missiles.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And for a tiny country... The other thing I want to say is I keep hearing how Israel's losing the PR war, which I don't think people fully understand the numbers here. Israel has to lose the PR war, always, because there's only 15 million Jews in the world. That's why. It's because it doesn't matter what the morality. Everyone thinks it's about the morality, but it's really not. It's really that if there were constituents all up and down this country where the MPs were really worried about what their Jewish constituents thought, because there were large numbers of them, if the media were worried about it, if there were hundreds of thousands of Jews marching every week, then that story would be heard more.
I think that's a fact. That's an easy answer. The fact is that even if there were no constituents who supported the Palestinians directly because they were, of that ethnic group or whatever, the people of this tremendous amount of anti-Israel feelings, because Israel is an ethno-state, and there's a war between the people who are Team World, who hate ethno-states, and the people who support.
I don't know if that's... People don't hate ethno-states.
Yes,
there's a bunch of other ethno-states. It's this specific
There's loads
ethno-state.
of states that are almost 100% one ethnicity, loads of them. And no one's against Native American reserves. The Navajo Reserve is 3.5 times the size of Israel. What would you expect if you went there? And it's a sovereign state. What would you expect to see? You'd expect to see Navajo Indians, wouldn't you? You wouldn't...
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with you, Lewis. I would say it's a religious war, except there's only one religion who's kind of at war. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No.
Like, in terms of the Islamic Republic of Iran, it seems to be a religious war for them. But for Jews, it's not a big deal.
No, there are two wars going on. One war is against states. There's a kumbaya going on with open borders and people being all the same and whatever identity you want, but you can't have a nationalistic identity. And that is part of this thing. Yes, there's anti-Semitism, there's anti-Israel, but there's still the idea that Israel is an oppressor by keeping these people out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, but
You agree with me?
To go back to what you were saying...
Well, there's definitely a few people have, yeah.
But to go what you were saying, Kerry, the analogy that I read online, which I thought was quite interesting, was if someone shot you and you were wearing a bulletproof vest, it doesn't mean that you're just going to then instantly forgive the shooter or just kind of ignore it.
Look, there's a difference between punishment and reacting to stop something escalating, you know. And if all of these attacks are testing ground for a larger attack, then I think Israel's going to respond to it.
Well, that's the other thing.
They cannot do. I'm not sure. Look, I would love to hear of a better. I personally wish Netanyahu wasn't in charge, wasn't running the ship during all this, and I wish that there was some other plans or ideas other than either attack back or just take it, which is not an option for Israel.
Well, well, this is it. So there are some positives, though, Lewis, you could argue, even though the big negative one, you know, obviously a child has died, and Israel has revealed its kind of strategic hand. So now, if this was to happen again, Iran knows where the counter-offensives are going to be coming from and can then deal with them accordingly. But what I'm trying to say here is, Lewis, is that there could be some positives here. We have seen that Saudi Arabia coming to Israel's defence and Jordan. Saudi Arabia, just before the show, just revealed that they believe or know that the whole reason that October 7th happened with the backing of Iran backing Hamas was because of Iran's threat of normalization with Saudi Arabia and Israel. So peace is happening in the region. In a way, it's drawing these other countries together, right?
No, peace is not happening. It's just that my friend of an enemy of a friend, an enemy of an enemy is my friend. And that's what Israel is to Iran, to the Saudis.
Not necessarily. They could be becoming friendly.
Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough to start a friendship? I mean, that's how the world works.
Maybe it is, but it's not bringing peace to the world because the Sunnis and the Shias hate each other, and there's nothing that can be done about that.
Or whatever. I mean, all I know is taking our personal, the three of us as a friend, what happened. I feel a lot closer to Kerry after dealing with you. Right. Next up, we have the Times, Lewis.
The Times. All right. Well, this is a little different story.
Can we go back to stories where I can make fun of Lewis? I'm much more.
We're going to get there.
Don't worry.
Don't worry, audience. We have a lot of stories where we take the mickey out of Lewis.
And I'll tell you something. That's what makes me a great guy. Is you can make fun of me. I'm so strong. You notice I'm like the royal family. You can make fun of me. Oh, yes. You can make fun of me.
It just doesn't hurt you because you love it.
I love it. Exactly. I love it.
I know.
But you know what? That's what I love about you. I love about you because I think to myself. Anyway,
let's do the story.
Is that Britain may try to send migrants to Costa Rica? This is a fallout because Rishi Sunak and the Tories were trying to do the Rwanda thing, which ain't going to happen, and so they're looking for other countries to do that quote third country processing deal where they bring immigrants. Asylum seekers, illegal immigrants into this.
Depends on which political party you support.
Yeah, I'll say it. If they're illegal immigrants, and some of the countries they came up with were Ivory Coast, Costa Rica, Armenia, and Botswana. And Louis Schaefer is very well traveled. I've been to Costa Rica, and you could not say that Costa Rica is a place that's unsafe. It is fantastic. It's one of those most beautiful countries in the Americas. And so it's amazing. But Armenia is a country that's about to be taken over by the Azeris. They've already taken over land of the Azeris. They're very precarious as a nation. And Ivory Coast isn't sub-Saharan.
You're not digging it. So, Kerry, it's because this is why the government lost its case in the Supreme Court, was because Rwanda was deemed unsafe.
Yes.
So finding another country that is safe would surely get over that.
I don't know whether that's what they're doing. It looks to me like they're just asking every single country. I mean, this is basically the whole of Africa.
Do you think they're going around like in
is
it like Marathon Man, where they're going around going, is it safe?
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Yeah, but I think what might happen is they might get a yes from loads of these different countries, and we'll be able to give them a choice, a little brochure where they can choose which African or South American state they want to go to. They're apparently looking for countries that will agree to, that may be interested in replicating the Rwanda scheme, it says here, but the Rwanda scheme hasn't even happened yet. So
if I was one of these countries,
I don't see that be successful
But surely they would jump on this. They'd be like, sure, give us £500 million, and then we'll build all the stuff, and then we don't have to do anything with it because you're never going to send anybody here.
Yeah.
Surely
Yeah,
this
so
is
there might
what
be-
we
And
can do
then
for
what they're
anybody.
doing,
isn't it? Yeah.
haven't they sold it off in Rwanda?
Yeah, they have, yeah.
So this is it's never gonna happen.
Well, that's not the point. It was never meant to happen. It was just meant to potentially happen.
Yeah.
Right, let's finish with the Daily Star. And who's going to do that? Kerry?
Me. It's a really exciting story.
It is exciting.
Is it?
You're a big fan of the film.
This is some rich bloke who's going to rebuild the Titanic, and he's had the brilliant idea of including lifeboats this time, which you'd think would be fairly necessary.
I think a radar would be good.
The problem with it is the next film's going to be really awful.
Oh.
It's just going to be nothing happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to crash.
No, you're mistaken. They're going to get dysentery. They're going to get COVID. They're going to be stuck on it for 2
maybe.
months.
Yeah.
This could be a good film.
I
Take
think-
a load of migrants.
I think they should combine this with the Rwanda scheme, is they put all the immigrants in the bottom decks, and then they put the upper decks, a lot of slaggy English women who are looking for a good time.
You know what, Lewis?
Loads of those.
Yeah,
Loads of them.
I think
Lewis, you're wasted on a Sunday here. Right, we've just told the front pages what's what. Coming up, we have the same with Rayna's residents, Sunak sabotage and suing Bond. See you there.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
This new hate crime bill on women's issues, you think this is the least funny April Fool's joke in history?
Yeah, although the Scottish Government and the Scottish Police do seem to be trying to make a bit of a joke of it when, you know, their campaign Hate Hurts is fronted by a hate monster who's a sort of cuddly, bright red Muppet-style thing. And some of the things that Humza Yousaf said about it were from a soft play centre over the weekend. But yeah, it's really not a joke. It's not actually clever lawyers who know the wording of the law who enforce the law. It's the police. And the police have basically not been trained on this at all. There's a 2-hour online training course they're meant to have done, and lots of them haven't already done it. And we know from the way that the police have been talking about it that they're wildly overstretching what it might actually be to be, in particular, abusive, which is one of the words in the new law, and specifically on the issue of transgender identity. To claim that just noticing the fact that there are two sexes and that sex can't change is meant to be hateful, that, you know, even after years of trying to study it, I can't understand why people hold this belief. But it's part and parcel of a pattern of legal measures that the Scottish Government has either introduced or has sought to introduce. So it tried to introduce gender self-ID, but that was overruled by Westminster because it was out of the power of the devolved government. It's still attempting to bring in a conversion therapy law, which sounds nice but isn't nice. It actually criminalises proper ethical treatment of gender-confused youngsters. They're trying to say that men who have certificates saying that they're women count as women for a particular measure to do with public boards. And then this hate crime law, which tries to make it really difficult for someone to talk in a factual, reality-based, clear, understandable way about all these measures. It all adds up to a sort of an authoritarian attempt to deny the fact that human beings are mammals and come in two sexes, and that recognising that matters for women's rights especially.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and completing this minion is Kerry Marks and Lewis Schaefer. Kerry, starting with Monday's Telegraph, and it seems the BBC is being as impartial as ever.
It's the Newsnight story of an interview with Angela Rayner. It says Newsnight admits omitting, which surely that counts as a self-out if it omits. You omit and omit. Anyway, omitting Beergate comparison from segment recorded last month after concerns from Labour staffers. And I'll just clear all that up because that didn't make much sense as a thing. This is to do with the investigation into claims that Miss Rayner wrongly declared which house was her permanent address in the electoral roll, which is, of course, a criminal offence. And the story pertains to the interview for Newsnight, in which they cut part of the interview where she was asked whether she would take responsibility for this and step down. And the argument is that they decided to take it out because it wasn't relevant at the time because she hadn't been charged yet by Manchester police. On the other hand, it's a bit suspicious because they also had a call from the Labour Party straight after the interview saying, just knock that on the head. And they said, yeah, maybe we should do that because she's on our side. Then they said, oops, we didn't mean that.
Yeah, but why?
That's exactly what happened.
Why wouldn't they do that?
Why wouldn't they do what?
Why wouldn't the BBC cut it out? Because the Labour Party are going to be their new bosses. Because the BBC is Big Brother broadcasting.
They're impartial.
They're supposed to be impartial, but you love them. You love them. This country loves the BBC. The BBC. Don't
tell me what I love.
You don't. All right, sorry.
Them. You know, they're all right.
But you don't mind them.
If you
don't mind them, the point is that the BBC, if we didn't pay for the BBC, no one would care if they cut anything out. They might find it interesting. Oh, look, the BBC cut it out. Oh. But because we pay for it, because they're not supposed to cut it out.
I actually disagree with you because I think it's more than the money. It's the trust that we have in it or don't have in it. As an institution, I find
they don't deserve any trust.
Well, I mean, I believe that less and less so for sure. But when you read an incident like this and you see them, it feels to me like, Kerry, that they're sort of mealy-mouthy, trying to get out of it. Because the way that he says, oh no, it was still definitely impartial, but the way his excuse was like, oh, it didn't really matter because technically the police weren't investigating. But actually, the question was, if you were found to be guilty, well, you'd only ever be found to be guilty if the police were investigating. So it just seems like they're trying to just come out on a technicality here.
I generally agree with you, but at the same time, I'm willing to give a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I think there's been more times recently where the BBC has shown a questionable bias that should be discussed more and looked into. But one like this, it could well be that he simply left it out of the interview, not feeling it was that important at that time. So I'm willing to.
Who owns the BBC? Who owns it? Listen, this is not my country.
But who owns the editorial decision?
Answer the
Lewis,
question.
you know what? Forget the BBC stuff for a second. I want to ask you a question about Rayner because there's a lot of criticism that I've been seeing online and in editorials and other news channels where they kind of go, oh, what's the point of going into this because Rayner, she's Labour, but it's, we're talking about £1,500 and an offence from 10 years ago. And there's a part of me that is sympathetic to that. But, of course, we're also talking about hypocrisy, right, and whether someone lied or not, and them being an elected official possibly soon. So do you care about this story, or do you think it's been blown out of proportion?
You know what? We've all done scummy things like that.
What?
I'm not saying I have. I'm not saying I have. I don't want to be. You know what the worst thing is? I don't want to be accused of a hypocrite. We've all done whatever we've done. The fact is that I don't like what Angela Rayner did. I don't care. Tories, Labour, scum on a pox on the country. I care that people love the BBC. And I think the BBC should be defunded. And if you love the BBC, you love it. And if you don't have to pay for it.
OK, well, it's a shame that the story is also really about Rayner. But yeah, let's move on to Monday's Guardian, Lewis, with news that the Tory party's executives, exes, are ganging up on their present beau.
Yeah, this is in the Guardian. And the senior Tories fear Johnson and Truss will sabotage Sunak's election campaign. Well, that article be written in every campaign. There's always going to be differences. And that's the parliamentary system. It's like rugby. All the players have to go.
No, but you don't think that Tony Blair, is going to be coming in.
Do you know when you interrupt me?
No, OK, but I'm just saying, That's a big point that you made, Lewis. I've been very good at not interrupting you. All right, so shut up for a second. But the point is, I'm going to stop you on that point there because no, this isn't a typical thing where the ex-leaders of a party come in to try and ruin the election of the present leader. So I just wanted to stop you there. Now, please, you may continue.
Well, why? Just because you think it, that doesn't make it true. And that wasn't even my point that I was about to get to.
Okay. Why am I in the middle?
My point is because Daddy and Mommy are fighting.
Now shut up, son.
Is that the point I was making, that this is just a typical article in The Guardian undermining the Tories. They're trying to show the Tories are arguing with themselves. The Tories don't have a fixed position. The Tories are crumbling. That's the point that I was about to get to.
OK, well, what do you think?
My feeling is, well, Johnson and Truss might sabotage Sunak's election campaign. I'm not sure what election campaign there really is to sabotage at this point. Apart from the tax bribes, he's probably going to offer later in the year to try and get himself noticed again. I don't know what he is and what he's about, particularly that has any interest or any quotable value. Anyhow, so
who are you talking about? Rishi?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying is that Rishi Sunak should, instead of being worried about what they're going to say, he should be giving a message that's strong enough. He's a leader.
Yeah.
He should be saying something of leadership value that is big enough that it doesn't matter what, and they're able to state their opinions. I mean, they're worried because Truss's book's coming out, 10 Years to Save the West, which I hope is better than her book, 50 Days as MP. I really don't know, because I feel like Rishi should be the one who's taking the leadership here rather than complaining. Oh, they're going to try and undermine me. It seems a bit pathetic.
But you're saying, can I
don't know. I'll just add. I don't know why he doesn't just buy them. He's got enough money. He should buy all of us.
That's what. That's what.
But the question is you're assuming this story is true. You're assuming that people have been speaking to the Guardian.
Senior Tories.
The Guardian.
It says here quite senior Tories. I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
But look, I don't think they're going to be making up a story.
How do you know? That's the Guardian.
They could well be exaggerating this. I don't.
Well, no, because the story is on a bedrock of last week. You had a Tory MP who endorsed another party, in this case Reform, and they didn't do anything about it. They didn't take the whip away from him. The whole thing about the Conservatives is normally they're very prideful on their discipline within the party, and it seems to be, as we get closer to the election, this is falling apart. And when you have two ex-leaders very prominently in the media, and you have, obviously, we have Boris Johnson coming to work here during the election cycle, when they're not for you, it could cause damage. Yes, sir, you may go. No, you want to go to the toilet, right?
Is that what is the motive of the Guardian for promoting this concept?
We know their motive.
Yes, and that's what we need to tell the people. And everything in the newspaper.
Of course they have motive, but that doesn't
all
make
lies.
No, you can have motive and then still focus on something that serves your interests that is still true. Anyway, mail now. Kerry, do you think Rishi will use the pull-out method?
This is Rishi Sunak blasting, apparently. He blasted the European Court over the overreach on net zero, and Tory Rao pulling out of human rights body ahead of Rwanda. This is around the Strasbourg
If you're blasting,
story
you should pull out of the human rights body.
Yes. This is the story of, let me see, 2,500 Swiss women of average age of 74 who are claiming, and I think they've won their case, haven't they, that they have a greater risk from heat waves, which I would have thought is probably because of the menopause doing between them. And so they've sued and they've won because they're the most vulnerable group, apparently, which I'd like to think climate change targets hysterical activists, in which case I'd be all for it. I suppose what it is, they can't do much. They want to push the governments to do more for climate change. So it's almost like the Al Capone thing of getting them on tax evasion instead. It's more now they're trying to get a government on the damage it does to older women, which I suppose is the case. But this could open a precedent to loads of sweaty climate change courts of the future where everyone will be suing governments.
Yeah, but it's just another example of Team World, which is the European Court of Justice, trying to dictate about Britain. The question is Britain is the UK a sovereign nation? And all Rishi Sunak has to do is say, you know what, screw the European Court of Justice.
Okay, for Ofcom reasons, we'll make the peace sign as the opposite of that. You can't swear on telly.
What did I say?
I don't want to say.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and also it's called the European Court of Human Rights.
Whatever it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologise for cursing.
All right.
Oh, I didn't realise that I cursed.
But surely the larger point here is, so what in terms of the impact that Switzerland is going to have on reaching net zero and what impact that's going to have on the world temperature? I understand the reasons behind it and getting... You can't sort of tell other countries to do it if the small countries aren't. But the idea...
It's a really unusual case, though. It's really unusual to be suing the courts over a government decision on climate. I don't think we've had anything like that.
Well, it seems like this is still kicking off whether we're going to leave. It's going to be Brexit Part 2. Guardian next, Lewis, and MI5 really dropped the ball on this one.
MI5, I remember when I came to this country, it always looked like M15. And Manchester Arena attacks survivors take legal action against MI5, which is the local, it's the FBI of this country. And there's 250 people. They're suing the government because the government didn't stop the Libyan bomber named Salman Abedi when they supposedly had 22 bits of information saying the guy was going to do this. The fact is that it's almost impossible to stop terrorism. I mean, a lot of times it is stopped, but a lot of times it goes through, and you almost feel for MI5 when there's I've read there's 40, 50,000 jihadis in the country that they're tracking. That's a lot of people to track.
They're going to slip through. He came through back from 4 days before the bombing.
Yeah.
But isn't it the case, Kerry, that it's always easier to look back in retrospect and go, oh, that's so obvious?
Well, as a legal retrospect expert, yes, of course it is. Also, I don't know. This is it's once again, it's another unusual case, and it's quite interesting. But I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or not. We don't know. So as you're saying, we don't know how many cases how many terrorist attacks they have stopped. But there is a worry with a case like this. Is will it force MI5 to be more transparent? And is that a good thing for an intelligence agency? Will they have to reveal some of their methods, their thinking and so on in order to show that they did do the work on this? On the other hand, if they didn't, then I suppose they have to be accountable.
And when you have family members, of course, who are...
When's the funny stories?
The funny stories are coming up in the next section. We're halfway through our patience with one another. And coming up, we have Sparks with Badenoch on the attack, Grade saying there's too much attack and how to catch little outs. See you in 2.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So there has been plenty of showers around in the north, all thanks to an area of low pressure situated out towards the north of the UK at the moment, but it will slowly move its way towards us through the rest of the weekend and into the start of Monday. Higher pressure does stay close by towards the south and west for a time, bringing some clear skies through this Sunday evening, but those showers in the north and west slowly push their way south and eastwards as we go through the early hours of Monday morning, turning particularly heavy across northern parts of England. And we could even see some snow across the high ground of Scotland. And it will be a chilly night here, temperatures dropping into the low single figures, and even in the south, around 7 or 8 degrees. Monday starts a bit chilly, but quite a blustery start to the day. Brisk northwesterly winds help clear that band of rain across the southeast through Monday morning, leaving a drier day. There will be some sunshine around, but some showers quite quickly developing from the northwest. These turning wintry across the high ground of northern England and Scotland, and it will be a much chillier day than we've seen over the weekend. Struggling to reach much above 12 or 13 in the south, and even struggling to reach double figures in the north. Tuesday does start a bit drier for most of us, though. There will be plenty of sunshine through the morning. Still the odd 1 or 2 showers around across northern and western parts, and perhaps a few bubbling up across eastern parts of England, but there should be plenty of sunshine around. However, temperatures still close to average. Still a few showers around on Wednesday and Thursday, but there are hints of something more settled later in the week, and temperatures returning closer to average.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners and getting straight into Monday's Independent. And seems like Michael Grade is a Headliners fan.
Yes, this is Ofcom Chair Michael Grade says TV has become exploitative, patronising and cruel.
Yay!
Yay! I mean, he's still involved in this guy Michael Grade. He's basically he's broadcasting royalty. He was Channel 4, I've read. He was ITV. His father was somebody. His grandfather basically invented movies in this country, I think. Did some amazing stuff. Yeah. And now this poor guy, Michael Grade, I really feel sorry for him. He's 81 years old. He's basically ending his life, if he dies soon, in the Office of Censorship of Media, which is what Ofcom is. He's a censor. And he was on Boom Radio. It was on Boom Radio, which is not even on TV. And
it's a podcast, basically.
It's a podcast, yeah. And he's in Joe Brand, who's lovely, lives in my neighborhood, has a kid similar in age to mine. And he's whatever he said, he shouldn't say it. It's like having Goebbels, who is a censor, talking about. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he's a clerk of the state. He is the official censor.
Fine, but he made some great television back in the day. And the point of the story is...
And I not give him credit?
No, but the point... No, you did. But the point of the story is, Kerry, surely, that what he's saying is there's too much reality TV, there's too much, as he says here, people being used to entertain people, as opposed to comedy, drama, educational programmes, documentaries, great television that we had from the 80s, 90s.
I don't fully disagree with him, actually. I think what he's saying is, you know, when we started getting rid of the received pronunciation on TV, and I kind of understood that at the time, but everyone wanted regional accents and they wanted it's got to be about us. I was at a comedy club once, there was a comedian on stage and someone in the audience stopped and went, "There's nothing about us, mate. There's nothing about us." I was going, yeah, that's why it's interesting, because you're not. I don't want to know about the public. There are people who are trained performers and so on.
He's right.
I don't
so
care.
what?
But he's noticed that TV has become exploitative, patronising and cruel. Has he just noticed? You know, where's he been? He's been doing this for a while.
And what did he have, and how was he involved in that at the time at Channel 4 or ITV? Did he not have some involvement in the television business? I think he did.
He may not have known how much reality was going to blow up, and everyone's going to be more about us, about us, about us.
Yeah, but did he say, "I'm sorry"?
I don't care about your lives, and I don't care about your accents. And I think the public love themselves too much.
There is an economic factor here, because, of course, it's a lot cheaper to make reality TV shows. That's the other thing, and easier, arguably. It also
happened with the soaps, you know, like the soap operas start, and at first there's two running for ages, and then they realise they can make really cheap, rubbish TV, and people want to watch it.
Please don't talk about us. I'm right in the room, mate. Now... because he does actually talk about GB News here. He says, or he's asked about, because, of course, we do have the Ofcom...
you read right to the end of the story?
I do read right to the end of the story. That's what I'm known for.
I look at the first paragraph.
And basically, he says here, we don't want our broadcasters being owned and run for political reasons. And I just want to say very clearly to Mr Grade, Lord Grade, that no one owns me, and vote for Green. Moving on to the Times. And Lewis, what do you think of this nickname, Bellicose Badenoch?
This is. I love her. I love her glasses. They're like something out of the 1960s. It's very artistic, something my mother would wear. But Kemi Badenoch attacks gender cowardice at the NHS, politics and police. She's saying this is in the result of the Cass report, which basically said what they were doing at the Tavistock Centre and other places with transing children was kind of wrong.
And it's more than kind of wrong.
very wrong. And I'm trying to moderate myself, and it should definitely stop. They're not supposed to trans kids, unless, of course, the kids are involved in some kind of study and people are watching them. So basically, the CAST report said nothing, and Kemi Badenoch saying that public bodies have been captured.
Yeah, but the problem is, and we've seen this before, when the Tories kind of tried to right some of the madness of the last few years, then they put in these, they changed laws, but the institutions, the police, the NHS, don't implement them, and that seems to be the problem, right?
Well, I think they're going to be forced to make some changes now since the CAST report, right?
But I'm talking about like the hate laws, like hate speech, when the police were reporting it.
Okay, personally, I think this is the way change always works. We always get too dramatic. We go too far over the top, and then we come back to something that makes a bit of sense. But really, we need to, as a society, to get better at learning to recognise social contagion and how it spreads. I'm quite sure that a lot of what's been going on over the last few years, we look back in the future more as just a fad of the times. I know people don't want to see that right now. In a few decades' time, you're going to see films representing 2020, and you're going to see people wearing he/him badges, and everyone will laugh and go, we used to do that.
You know what? You're totally right.
This is old-fashioned, and I think people only when you've lived for quite a while you start recognising all the signs of that. And it always goes too far.
I agree with you. I just don't think that's really what this story is about. That's not what she's saying.
Who are you, Josh, to decide what the story is about?
That's what the story is very clearly.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
He's talking about gender identity.
He's read one way, and I'm reading another way.
There is no other way. This is what the headline is and what the words in the article are, which are about the failure of our institutions.
Josh, you've got to be.
Can we just fight it?
And like I say, the person in the seat has to be more Angus Deaton and less Ian Houser.
Thank you, Lewis. Okay, thank you so much.
But can I just say that Carrie is right?
I think she's calling it. That's what I'm saying.
Because I was watching a Stranglers video from the early 1980s, and they had girls in punk girls, whatever, and they were like hundreds of them, punk girls, and you thought, if you were there, you think, wow, the world is ending with all the shaved mohawks.
Yeah, Lewis, that anecdote is why we do have a host. Monday's Times, Carrie, and a moral conundrum for three idiots to mull over.
Right. Now, this is I think it's a very morally interesting story. This is the Dutch woman who's physically healthy, and she's choosing euthanasia at the age of 33. Is that correct?
Yep.
I think at the age of 33, putting the youth into euthanasia, as it were. It's a very morbid story, and I have very mixed feelings on the subject of euthanasia anyway, because I'm generally quite for it. In that I think there's a lot of people who should choose it personally, but I also I think it's ridiculous to force people to live a life sentence for having not done anything wrong. If you're not enjoying life and you're certain it's not going to improve, I think everyone should have. It's your body and your choice, as far as I'm concerned. I'm quite libertarian like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time...
Yes, and I agree with that.
But at the same time, does this, though, open a door where younger people and mental health will be...
Does it open the door? It has opened the door. There was 9,000 people killed. If people want to die, they can die. If you're having such a bad time living, you don't need anybody to take your life. You can just die. And if you're not dying that way, you can jump off a bridge, which I don't recommend.
Yeah, that's not good.
Well, I mean, it is interesting in terms of what she's talking about, her mental anguish here. This has been going on within the Netherlands for a couple of decades now, but the problem is that the system, like any systems, can be exploited. There was someone on Free Speech Nation, I think about a year ago, whose mother had psychiatric issues, and she basically got this euthanasia, and her son argues that it happened wrongly, that it was pushed through too quickly, too easily. That seems to be part of the problem, and I do think there is
it's complex
differentiation between older people or anybody with some sort of fatal illness or disease coming to the end of their life and in pain, and what we're talking about here, which is psychological pain. I feel very blessed that I don't suffer from either of those, so it's hard for me to empathise. But one of the big factors they say here is whether they allow it to happen is whether, Lewis, it can be treated. And the argument that psychological pain, there's no hope for it, I would say is a weak one.
It's a really weak one. I'm going to say something I don't think I've ever said. It goes against God. And but that's not even my reason. My reason is you shouldn't you know, if someone came to you and said, you know what, I want my arm to, if you came to somebody and said, I want my arm to be eaten, they shouldn't eat your arm, even if they were even into eating arms. You just don't do this. They're killing people. Who are the people who are dying? Europeans. It's so morally wrong. Could even be racist. You might even consider that. It's the death of
Europeans.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, exciting.
She might ruin assisted dying for the rest of us.
Okay, well, exciting news in the Times for those of us against the most evil people in the world, Lewis.
That is I agree with you. This is use your dash cam to slap litter louts with £500 fine, drivers told. And this is Buckinghamshire Council is asking people, turn in litterers. If you see somebody throwing a Coke can out of, excuse me, am I allowed to say that? A soda pop can out of the car.
Being extra careful.
Out of the car. Send it. I mean, yeah, I got to be careful. I don't even.
Do the story.
We were having such a good time. You know, we got to do the show by ourselves, Carrie. I love you so much.
Doesn't it make? Am I wrong that it makes the car go faster if you throw the rubbish out?
You can try that one in court. Yeah. But of course, we have this idea of the nanny state, people dobbing each other in a little bit. Yeah. But at the same time, litterers are evil, and I think they should be paying.
Who cares what you think, Josh? We've got a panelist here.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm asking for him. Lewis, shut up. Kerry, I'm trying to get to him.
I saw someone walking on the street just a few days ago, and she had like a bag of crisps and just threw it over her shoulder. And somehow the arrogance of that, I want to be able to report her straight away or do something. But actually, I don't. I'd like to be able to say something to her, which someone else did, and she got mad with them. But at the same time, I do worry about this kind of idea of public reporting each other.
Dob them in. Dob them in. Just the final section to go, and some shockers with cash paying a reason to get religious, some X-rated health advice for men and women as well. See you shortly.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
One more story in. Milton Keynes, absolute chaos in the city. 300-odd youths arrested or at least involved in a
stampede.
A stampede. Yeah, what's been going on?
A stampede through the...
there we are.
This is the video. So this is a stampede through a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. I think, Amy, you live there, don't you? You live nearby.
For those on radio, we can see literally hundreds, scores of kids.
I think there are about 300 kids.
Are they in school uniform?
Yeah, quite.
This is as they've broken up from school, presumably.
Security tried to intervene. They've been accused of being heavy-handed. But I think this speaks to the fact that the landscape of youth services has just been decimated, and there's literally nothing for kids.
So hang on, whoa. You think that this has happened because social services have been diluted?
Youth services.
This is because there's no police around, there's no oversight, there's no deterrent, and 300 kids think that they can run through a shopping centre, frightening shoppers out of their lives.
Going to a shopping centre.
Amy, sorry, my kids would not be behaving like that because there's no ping pong available at the local
Aren't your kids like age 4 and 5? These are teenagers, and our teenagers are headed into a world where there are no leisure services, there are no
nothing to do with crime.
If
we up the ante on basketball, it's not going to stop kids being stabbed on the street.
What creates antisocial behaviour is having nothing to do.
It's lack of discipline in the home, lack of discipline in the home, and lack of policing on the streets, and a judiciary and a penal system that is utterly liberal.
You're going right to the end of the line. What about the preventative measures?
What about the people that these people affect by running through a shopping centre and stampeding? When there's mothers with kids in prams frightened out of their lives, and we're worried about the social services aspect that's perhaps led to it.
You're talking about stick, right?
Yeah. So how long does your solution take to resolve it? Mine takes about 30 seconds. More police, bang them up. Yours...
Russell, should parents be fined?
More police, bang them up.
Absolutely. And the kids should be taken to task.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's go to the Mail. And Kerry, is this why you insist on paying your dealer by card?
This is a really important study. I wouldn't make fun of it. It's the study that appears in the Journal of Economic Behaviour and Organisation, where they have discovered that people feel more psychological pain when they pay cash than when they use a card, because they can just tap the card and it's done, whereas cash is counting it and seeing the money and feeling it. It says here the pain of... they bothered doing this. The pain of paying is higher for poorer people. This is what they discovered. People without money find it more difficult to pay. And they also say, also for those who are excessively frugal. So, yes, it turns out that mean people aren't particularly happy about spending money, which is not surprising. To be honest, actually, I feel the opposite about this. I'm much happier spending money that's cash because it's not accounted for. It's like it's non-money. You know, if I pay with my card,
that's because you don't declare it, right? You don't declare it.
I declare all of it, and I'm very good. But if I pay with my card, my bank balance goes down. If I pay with cash, my jacket gets lighter. I don't even notice it. It doesn't show anywhere. It's irrelevant to. It's not. And it's not about taxes. It's more about just seeing that number change.
What do you think, Lewis? Does it cause you pain spending money cash-wise?
Well, I don't want to make a joke about my ethnicity. No, it doesn't cause me. I think spending all money is a joy. That's the problem.
Do you want to give me some money?
Yeah. It is. It's when you give people money, you just
I want to make you happy.
Yeah.
Give me money.
I will give you money.
Okay.
Why is it you didn't plug your mugs there, Lewis? I don't. Personally, I think that this whole the future, you know, with the whole chip in hand, I think you should be able to get like an electric shock every time you spend money. And that way it'll sort of defer you from living.
I like it.
Yeah, Kerry, the Telegraph story reminds me of that famous Christian proverb: "If you can't take Mohammed to the mountain, bring the mountain to Mohammed."
Yeah, it does do that, doesn't it? In a way, the crazy proselytising Christians are finding new ways of spreading the word. This is an Italian priest who started preaching in bars. He's found that people aren't going to the church; they're going to the bar to avoid him. So he is going to the bar to not let them get away with it. I think he should be going to spaghetti houses. He could be a pasta. Never mind. Let's carry on. I imagine his next thing is going to be brothels and then S&M dungeons and just not let them go and hide anywhere at all. And so he's going into the bars and he's telling them about God and they're saying, yeah, it's really interesting. You're around again, isn't it?
You know what this sounds like? This guy going to the pub to proselytize or whatever, to preach. It's just some random nutter in a pub in London. It's just, this is the way English people are. There's just some guy. He just says, oh, I'm here for a purpose. He's just some boring blowhard just lecturing people. It says for 40 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bit too long to do anything.
Yeah. He says he met the Pope, but he doesn't know if the Pope remembers him, but it's probably because he got him drunk.
Lewis, this is the Daily Star just doing a humble brag here.
Yeah, this is experts urge men to do we have to discuss this, to ejaculate 21 times a month for the sake of truth? This is one of those stories that is complete and utter rubbish. It's done by Harvard University, which used to be the most prestigious school in America and one of the most in the world, and you can't trust it. You can't trust Harvard University. It basically says they analyzed a lot of people, and they found out that men who are the healthiest are men who ejaculate 21 times a month. But maybe it's because they're happiest. Maybe because they don't have disease like prostate disease, so they can do it.
You think it's a chicken and the egg?
I think it's what I call a Carl story. It's a correlation, association, link to. It's it's a non-story.
But I mean, I think at your age, you would say that, wouldn't you? I mean, Kerry, you're a little bit younger, a bit more vital. What do you
I do everything I can to stop myself getting prostate cancer.
And so you're going to do this?
I take this very, very seriously. And I thought we already knew this anyway. Why is it taking us so long to get to the fun stories?
Yeah.
And they're saying there's loads of health benefits. Improves sperm quality, gives your immune system a boost. It aids migraines, reduces risk of heart disease and so on. But they're also warning that despite the health benefits, you can do it too much. And there are warning signs that tell you, like, if your penis is bright red and glowing.
I think the whole point of this study was just so people could go to their wives, do you want me to get cancer?
Yeah.
Right, Lewis is the daily... Yeah, well, let's do the final story. Kerry, actually, it's the male to finish us off.
Oh, now we're on to women having more orgasms as well. So, hey, everyone wins. Yeah. Everyone wins today. More orgasms in midlife. This is... it's basically the same story, saying that there's benefits for women, and that this woman is... She doesn't say who it is here, by the way. This woman just... that the opening thing is, I'm going to tell you something few people will. It's very odd kind of... isn't it, the introduction to this? And the thing she wants to tell women is that they should... touch themselves up a little bit more, which I think is they should. You should definitely do that. Well, and then she goes on about how dried out their vagina.
Anyway, coming to the end.
It's science.
It's a shame we can't. It's a shame we can't go to Lewis, because he would tell us that this is obviously fake and a non-story. The show is nearly over. Let's take a quick look at Monday's front pages. The Times: Israel vows revenge as the world calls for calm. The Daily Mail: It's time the world faces evil empire in Tehran. The Eye: Iran risks an uncontrollable wider war with Israel attacks. G7 nations warn. Financial Times: Israel weighs options after Iran attack. The Guardian: US warning as Israel weighs up response to Iran attacks. Daily Star: will add a few more lifeboats to the new Titanic. That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to Kerry and Lewis. Headlines back tomorrow at 11 p.m. If you're watching at 5 p.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Goodbye.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So there has been plenty of showers around in the north, all thanks to an area of low pressure situated out towards the north of the UK at the moment, but it will slowly move its way towards us through the rest of the weekend and into the start of Monday. Higher pressure does stay close by towards the south and west for a time, bringing some clear skies through the Sunday evening, but those showers in the north and west slowly push their way south and eastwards as we go through the early hours of Monday morning, turning particularly heavy across northern parts of England. And we could even see some snow across the high ground of Scotland. And it will be a chilly night here, temperatures dropping into the low single figures, and even in the south around 7 or 8 degrees. Monday starts a bit chilly, but quite a blustery start to the day. Brisk northwesterly winds help clear that band of rain across the southeast through Monday morning, leaving a drier day. There will be some sunshine around, but some showers quite quickly developing from the northwest. These turning wintry across the high ground of northern England and Scotland, and it will be a much chillier day than we've seen over the weekend. Struggling to reach much above 12 or 13 in the south, and even struggling to reach double figures in the north. Tuesday does start a bit drier for most of us, though. There will be plenty of sunshine through the morning. Still the odd 1 or 2 showers around across northern and western parts, and perhaps a few bubbling up across eastern parts of England, but there should be plenty of sunshine around. However, temperatures still close to average. Still a few showers around on Wednesday and Thursday, but there are hints of something more settled later in the week, and temperatures returning closer to average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Variety Cruises have been sailing since 1942, and thanks to them, you could set sail in 2025. You have the chance to win a 7-night small boat cruise for 2 worth £10,000. With your flights, meals, drinks and excursions included, you can choose from any one of their 2020